Okay, now welcome back to another video. We're not going to really spend much time on this video. Today we're going to be talking about how to find the maximum value and the minimum value on a graph, and also we're going to be looking at finding the roots of an equation using your graph. So these are just the basic things we're going to discuss today. So the first thing, how can you find the maximum minimum values of the graph? First of all, what are maximum values? What are the minimum values in your graph? Now, talking about maximum and minimum values in your graph is actually referring to the highest point and the lowest points on your graph. Now, it's very closely related to the y-axis. So the highest point on your graph of the curve and refers to the maximum value. Now, the lowest point of the curve on the graph refers to the minimum value of your graph. So easily, if you have the question we have been looking at, I drew a very plain perfect curve, probably the best I've ever drawn. So now this curve actually is from the question we've been discussing in our previous videos. Now, and this graph, we asked to find the minimum value. Obviously, we're going to look for the minimum value because minimum value involves the lowest points on the graph. So if you look at it, the minimum value here is -4. So -4 is the minimum value on the graph. So normally they will ask you what is the minimum value of this equation, or what is the minimum value on the graph, or use the graph to find the minimum value of this equation. So the questions normally come like that. Now your answer would certainly be something like this. The minimum value could be something like the minimum value of y would be equal to -4. So that's exactly what you do to answer that kind of question. So that's it. The minimum value of that question is -4. Now if you're asked to find the maximum value, you'll be looking at something like this. So it will be looking like this. So it's normally the highest point in the graph. So you mark that out. Remember to mark that out on your graph. You mark it out so that the examiner knows what exactly you've done. So you mark it out, then you write it in this format, then you change it to the maximum value of y equal to this. So that's exactly for minimum and maximum values. Now what about roots of the graph? Now sometimes they can ask you the question of find the roots of the equation using the graph. So basically, to find the roots of the equation, you have to notice the point where the curve, this curve, cuts the x-axis. So the roots of the equation normally concerns the x-axis only. So for this graph we did here, now how do you find the roots of this graph? Basically, the point where the curve cuts the x-axis, this is the x-axis, it's normally at 2 points. So the point where the curve cuts the x-axis is the root of the graph. So at this point we have the roots of this graph. We have -1 and 3. Now the equation for this particular graph is x squared minus 3x minus 4 equal to 0. So we just write, I'm gonna write it here. So we just say the roots of x squared minus 2x, that's the real equation, minus 3 equal to 0 is, you notice the point, there's a point -1 and 3. So you have x equal to -1 or 3. That's the answer. That's just a point about roots. Whether x-axis, the curve cuts the x-axis, and that's where you find the roots of the equation. So it doesn't matter how to twist the equation. Just know that anytime you're talking about roots, this is what you do. Look at the points on the curve that cuts the x-axis. So this is basically about roots and maximum and minimum values. Notice that The maximum value is the highest point on the graph. The minimum value is the lowest point on the graph for the y-axis, and the roots are the points where the curve cuts the x-axis.